Hello everyone, and welcome to another animated look back. Until now, I've yet to do a sequel on Animated Look Back, but I always knew that when I did do a sequel, it was going to be Shrek 2. And no, it's not because my Shrek review is one of my highest viewed videos. You have to remember that when Shrek came out, the public at large had no idea what to make of this film. Some people thought this was an awful thing that has no place in children's animation, where other people saw it as brave and new and truly carving its own place in the world of animation. DreamWorks certainly felt that way, and with good reason, considering the first one was not only a box office hit, but also won the first Oscar for Best Animated Feature. And although Shrek 2 would lose that award to The Incredibles, it was a box office hit, making $500 million more than the first one. So the question remains, which one of these films is better, and how does Shrek 2 hold up 12 years later? 12 years? Holy crap, I'm getting old. I gotta start saving for my retirement. Now, well, who cares? Let's dive right into it. This is my Shrek 2 review. The story starts in a place where very few fairy tales go, the honeymoon. Shrek and Fiona are traveling the magical land, going to all these tourist destinations, which are fairy tale destinations, seeing all the sights in a very, very funny opening. But they're not there for 5 minutes before they receive word from Fiona's home kingdom, the land of far, far away. Don't you just love that name? I mean, it's perfect. Fiona's parents have received word that Fiona is rescued and is now married, but whoever delivered that message left out a couple of really important details. She's an ogre! Not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm not racist against the green people. I have plenty of frogs who are green. And not only is she an ogre permanently, but she's also married to one as well. While Fiona is excited to see her parents again after being locked in the tower for so long, Shrek is not as into this. He really thinks it's a bad idea. He is really hesitant and is really just going through this so he can get it over with. He's not even trying at all. The King and Queen of Far, Far Away are played by John Cleese and Julie Andrews, and they are quite shocked when they see what their little girl has turned into. They grow up so fast, and they grow wide so fast. Okay, now I'm fat shaming, that's bad. But somebody who is even more upset to see that Fiona is married to Shrek is the fairy godmother, who is mother to Prince Charming, who was the prince intended to marry Fiona. Which is kind of funny when you think about it, because you kind of always wonder when Shrek rescued Fiona, is like, wait, did he just burst into some other person's story and steal their happy ending? Well, I guess he did, but in this case you don't have to feel too bad about it, because he's a mama's boy and not really that nice of a person. The fairy godmother tells the king to do away with Shrek, and so he has to hire a hitman to do him in. Or should I say, hit cat. It is Puss in Boots. And he is hired to take out the ogre, which is actually a funny little nod, because if you don't know, in Puss in Boots' original story, this cat kills an ogre because the ogre can turn into anything, and so the cat says, I bet you can't turn into a fly, and the ogre does, and then the cat just kills the fly. So that's how the story of Puss in Boots goes. So it's kind of a funny nod. And he is played by Antonio Banderas, and he eventually decides not to kill Shrek, but teams up with him in order to see if he can help him in any way. I mean, the voice acting is outstanding. John Cleese and Julie Andrews are great as the King and Queen. Even though, you know what? Even though John Cleese probably has more funny lines because he has more to do in the movie, just every time Julie Andrews' character says something, I'm always just laughing. It cracks me up.
It's so nice to have the family together for dinner.
Banderas is also a welcome addition to the crew. He's funny, charming, he has a couple of great, quick lines, and is all around an entertaining character. And let me just say, it's no surprise that he's the only one of these characters that got his own film after the series was over. The villains are also well voiced. I think making the fairy godmother an evil genius was a stroke of genius. In the Disney world... No, not that Disney world. I mean, in the Disney world. The fairy godmother is the embodiment of just be good, and one day good things will happen to you. But if you twist that just enough, you can get this perspective, which means she is just a person who helps the beautiful but stupid people in order to get stuff that she wants. I mean, she only helps the king because she wants her son to be king over the land. She's like the Godfather, you know, you scratch my back, I'll scratch your back. I'm gonna make you an offer you can't refuse. Because it'll be magic. Sometimes it makes you wonder, you know, if she's the one just giving these happy endings to people, she's picking and choosing who she's giving it to. But that also kind of means, what if she's the person causing the problem to begin with? We never know why Fiona is turning into an ogre. It could very well be possible that it was the fairy godmother who cursed her in the first place so she could get her son on the throne of far, far away. Now, they don't say that in the film, but I'm just saying, it wouldn't be too much of a stretch to say that she might have been the one to do it. It's also interesting that when the king says, hey, you can't make somebody fall in love, the fairy godmother's response is,
I do it all the time.
She does it all the time. If you really think about it, that kind of is like an explanation to why in these fairy tale stories, these characters who just meet one day or are going to be married the next, it's like, it's almost like DreamWorks is saying, yeah, all these happy ever afters, they're not happy ever afters. They're just the manipulations of an evil mastermind using other people as pawns in her scheme. Because that's not love. Love is not something that you can just fall into and then boom, you're in love. And it's true love that will last forever. And I really think that's what this film is saying. It's clearly saying that Disney movie love is not real love. Love is like how Shrek and Fiona are. They love each other, but there's still troubles that they have to work with and to overcome. I think out of all the Shrek movies, she is definitely the best. Not that I haven't seen the fourth one, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say that she's better than Rumpelstiltskin. I mean, she can be both funny, but also menacing. I also like her being like the mother that spoils her child, but also, you know, is an evil mastermind. The main cast of Murphy's, Myers, and Diaz come back, and I think, you know what, for the most part, I think they all do a great job. Donkey, I think he's even more funnier in this one than he was in the last one. I think what I always say about the difference between Shrek and Shrek 2 is Shrek 2 has funny lines, but Shrek 1 has lines that are funny. Basically, they're not telling a joke necessarily in the first Shrek. It's a lot of random stuff, and it's just the way the character says it that makes it funny. But if you don't really, you know, it's like sometimes a joke can be funny, but if a person tells it wrong, you know, or like doesn't tell it in an entertaining way, it's just not funny. But sometimes a joke can just be kind of funny, but it's the way a person tells it that makes it funny. I think Shrek 2 has actual jokes that are funny, that even if you told the story wrong, maybe you'd still get a chuckle out of you. But if somebody didn't use the right inflections for the first Shrek's jokes, there wasn't a lot of lines that really stood out to me as being actually hilarious. Except for the Muffin Man thing, that's absolute genius. I think Donkey is funnier. I think most of the cast are just more hilarious. Shrek and Fiona's relationship is handled really well. Fiona in the beginning of the first one made a huge sacrifice, giving up her looks and humanity in order to be with the man or ogre that she loved. I like how the movie acknowledges this. Now Shrek has to see that if he wants to show her that he loves her, he has to be willing to do the same. I will say, however, the film falls a little bit into the trope of the guy that is just having to do all the work and the woman that just has to be saved at the end. Now, it isn't as bad as other movies. I mean, when Charming is pretending to be Shrek, she knows something is wrong. She knows that he's acting really un-Shrek-like. But in the end, it's kind of just like the first one. It's Shrek who has to put in the effort to stop the bad guy while Fiona is being conned. And she doesn't get a character arc or anything. The king actually gets a character arc. He goes from arguing with Shrek to being forced to kill him, and then being forced to try to make his own daughter fall in love with a man she doesn't love. And then come to the realization that he wasn't trying to split them up because it's what's best for her, it's because it's what's best for him. Thinking about it, besides Shrek, he is the second most important story being told in this film. Speaking about Shrek, let's talk about him. I really like what they did with him in this film. He's used to being like a shutout and shutting himself out from the rest of the world. But now he's found somebody who he loves and cares deeply. And he wants them together to shut themselves out from the rest of the world. He wants to be locked away with his happiness. But he doesn't want to go out into the world and have to meet the parents. Shrek not only thinks it's not going to work, but he also doesn't really give it a chance. He's just here, okay, let's go. I do like how he points out to the king that, oh yeah, the logic in locking your daughter up in a tower with a dragon? What kind of twisted person are you? In any case, he doesn't want to stay and work through the problems that he's having with Fiona's family. He just wants to say, well, we're having problems, so let's get out and shut them out from our lives for all eternity. And Fiona makes a very good point. She has had to make many sacrifices for Shrek, but he hasn't had to make any for her. And for their marriage to work, he has to be willing to do the same. Because you can't have a marriage working with one person just saying, no, 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 yes, 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 and, deciding everything. One person giving and giving and giving. It's a give and take relationship. And if he truly loves her, he should be willing to sacrifice some of his personal wants and needs. And I like how this gets to him, how he doesn't just brush it off, it really gets to him. And there's a nice scene where he's in Fiona's old room, and he reads her old diary about being saved by a handsome prince. I remember when I first saw this, and I saw that she had an action figure of a knight killing an ogre while a princess was right beside, being like, oh, you saved me. I remember thinking, oh, come on, that's pushing it a little bit. But then I thought how sad that is. I mean, think about it. You have a girl who turns into an ogre every night, and she is a toy of a knight killing an ogre. I mean, think about it. That's like she's being told that ogres are evil and whatnot, and that it's not just something that's part of her, that it's just evil. This part of her is evil, and so she's playing with the embodiment of the knight killing the evil out of her, when the truth is all she really was different. It's actually really good, really symbolic. I really like that. Anyway, Shrek, wanting to prove that he wants to be a better person, breaks into the fairy godmother's magical potion shop and finds one for happily ever after. The potion turns Shrek and Fiona to handsome versions of themselves. Turns Shrek into a human version of themselves. Oh, and Donkey into a horse, but that's neither here nor there. By the way, am I the only one wondering what was happening with Dragon when, Donkey was a horse? Because it's supposed to affect the one you love, so what did Dragon turn into? Spiro? I don't know. Anyway, when this happened in the theater, I was shocked. I mean, I guess I shouldn't have been because I saw the trailer and saw Donkey as a horse, but it was just so shocking to me that they would take this character who's known being a loud, rambunctious ogre and turning him into a human for the last act of the film. But it is a really great move because it shows that Shrek is willing to sacrifice stuff that he cares about himself for Fiona because she's the one that he loves. He's being selfless. And of course, with Charming and the Fairy Godmother, they're being selfish because they want everything for themselves. And in the end, it is two selfless acts by the king that saves the day. One, him not giving her the potion, and two, him jumping in front of the blast from the Fairy Godmother's wand. In any case, I think that Shrek does have a very good character arc. I do think the final battle is a little bit similar to the first one. I mean, Shrek gets on a giant monster, fights his way through soldiers in order to stop Fiona from kissing a bad guy. Pretty similar. However, I would say that this finale is better. It's more fun, there's more jokes, and a darn good musical number to go along with it. And the ending is really, really touching. One thing that I am worried about in this film is it going to be dated? Is this film going to hold up in 20 years? Are people going to get a lot of these jokes? Now, don't get me wrong, I still find the film hilarious, and I still will for the rest of my life, but I just don't know how future generations are going to find this film. Is this a film that no matter what, it's going to be able to be related to and found funny, or is it just one for the times? I don't know. I can't answer that question. Now, this film is able to get away with a lot of stuff because it's a parody, but there's still some things that I'm a little bugged about, like how, it takes Shrek, Fiona, and Donkey days, if not months, from what it looks like in the opening montage for them to get from the swamp to far, far away. And it takes Gingy and the gang, like, seconds to go from watching Shrek on the television, from them breaking out of prison, in, like, a few seconds. How did that happen? You could have just had one joke or something. A little throwaway line like, well, we got into the hot air balloon and flew over here. Or, it was actually right around the corner. You went the long way round. You know, something like that. By the way, speaking of the magical carriage that Shrek and Fiona drive, where did they get that? Isn't it the fairy godmother who turns, like, vegetables into carriages? Well, if it wasn't her, then who did that? I don't know. I'm really curious now. I think the biggest misstep for the actual story is how quickly Shrek gives up on Fiona. I mean, he sees her talking with Charming, and that's it? He just gives up? Heck, if he didn't overhear the king's and godmother's conversation, he wouldn't have gone back to save her at all. I get that he wants to make her happy and everything, but shouldn't he know that just walking away is not the right thing to do? I get that he wants to make her happy and everything, but he should know better than that. I've always found the thing where I love her and that's why I have to let her go is a stupid thing. It rarely ever makes any sense. It's stupid and it's always forced and it's never ever natural. Overall, however, I love Shrek 2. I'm not sure if it would be in my top 10 animated favorite films of all time, but I think it probably would break at least the top 20. If not, maybe the top 10. I haven't thought that list through, so to speak. It is fun, heartwarming, smart, with some low-blow humor in there for the preteens. Great villain, great heroes, great supporting cast. Shrek 2 is great. So in the end, I'm giving Shrek 2 an 8 out of 10. It's a good time, and there's not a whole lot I can really find in the film that really bothers me. The only thing I can say is the Shrek giving up thing. That's about it. Everything else is just nitpicks. And when I can say that about a film, that makes it, in my mind, a pretty great movie. And I think it's another one of DreamWorks' trendsetters for a very good reason. And in my mind, I think Shrek 2 is definitely the best Shrek in them all. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'm LazyDude99, and be sure to join me on my next Animated Look Back, where I look at an animator's work that I have not touched yet. That's right. It's time to look at work by the great Don Bluth, and I'm going to go with probably his film that I watched the most growing up, The Land Before Time. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you next time on the next Animated Look Back. Bye. But when they finally return to the swampland, they're not there for 5 minutes where they receive word from Fiona's kingdom. The land... Oh, dang it, I had to burp.